Dennis Cohen, everyone.
Yay!
It's 2 a.m. and I've got my head under a pillow again. I'm trying to block out the angry voices of my mom and my dad who are fighting about money. It's always about money. At least, well, at 6 years old, maybe you don't understand. I didn't understand about, women and cheating and lying, but money I knew about. Something there was never enough of. Something that there was always fights about, and anger and fear. And I would hear their voices down the hall, coming from the bathroom. My dad, he'd lay in the tub for hours reading, the water just dripping hot, just to keep the perfect temperature, washcloth floating over his thingy. And she'd come in and she'd yell, she'd cry, she'd yell, she'd cry. And my world was just filled with these angry voices, fear, and the fighting that no amount of pillows could block out. But during the day, my world was different. It was full of fantasy, full of stories about heroes, stories that I read, stories that I wrote, stories that took me out of this world of pain and strife to a world where damsels in distress always got rescued and people lived happily ever after, always. But in the real world, there weren't any heroes, just deserters. And my dad would leave. He'd leave for long hours working at his shop. He'd leave for days on end every month or so. And one time he left for almost a year to some exotic foreign land called Oklahoma. But then he'd come back. Something kept them together, because he would come back over and over and over again. Then the fighting would start, and he'd leave once more. I guess it was love. I think there was as much love as there was anger. Because they were always kissing, touching, laughing, and playing together. It was this game that I didn't understand. I couldn't figure it out, but all I knew is it was one minute it was great, and one minute it was horrible, and it was hot, and it was cold. And whatever it was extreme, it was passionate. Well, eventually it ended. They separated. We got a divorce. And we'd see my dad, on the weekends and occasional dinners, holidays. During the summer, he'd take us fishing. He had a boat, several boats that never quite ran well. We'd bob around for hours, He'd be there tinkering with a motor, swearing under his breath. My brother would be seasick. I loved it. I loved it. Surrounded by all that beautiful blue-green, looking at all the pretty boats. There goes a Chris Craft. Oh, it's so clean, it's so sleek. Someday I'll have a Chris Craft. I do have a Chris Craft.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for. And then one winter, I think I was about 10 years old, I was staying with my dad because my mom and grandma and my Uncle Ike, they'd gone up to visit some relatives in Seattle. And we get a call. There had been an accident, a really bad one. My mom had been driving and hit a patch of ice, and the car flipped over and over and over and over. It was a horrible accident. And it was a miracle they weren't all killed. But fortunately they weren't. But my grandmother was really hurt pretty bad. They had to fly her, with an ambulance plane, and she flew with my Uncle Ike. And my mom was pretty busted up, but not that seriously hurt. So my dad and I would get in the car and we'd drive up to Northern California. We'd leave at night and we'd drive for hours and hours and hours. We'd just stop for gas and to eat and to pee. Peeing was the best part. I get to stand by the side of the road and pee and no one would say anything was okay. Cars are whizzing by and I'm whizzing. whizzing and whizzing. And we played the lifesaver game. I would get a lifesaver, put it in his mouth, and he'd have to guess what flavor it was. And if he'd get it wrong, I'd laugh and laugh. It's amazing the simple games that can keep a kid amused, and amazing the patience that a father has for the son that he loves.
He just liked candy.
You like candy. All kinds of candy. Yes. So, but eventually we got up to Alturas, California, right on the border, and we pick up my mom, and she's pretty beat up. She's hurt and stiff, but pretty okay. I'm pretty happy because they're together and they're not fighting. In fact, you could feel their love. It was palpable. They're in the front seat, and it's just flowing over to me in my perch in the back seat. And I'm happy. And then we're on this busy highway, and all of a sudden we stop. Side of the road. Why are we stopping? They didn't say. It turns out my mom had a baby. But it's not something you tell your 10-year-old son. She says, go find mommy a pretty rock or something. Okay. So I go and I find some pretty stones, and I was pretty good at finding stuff. And I bring up, mommy, look what I brought. And I stop. There's my mom, hunched down on the side of the road next to the car. She's trying to pee, and she's in pain, she's stiff. My dad's holding her, tenderly, gently, keeping her safe, helping her pee, loving her. And in that moment, a story was born inside of me, a belief, really, about relationships, about how no matter how much fighting there is, cheating, lying, separation, divorce, the love doesn't go away. It doesn't die, it's still there. It's taken a different form, but it's still there. Fast forward 50 plus years, I'm a divorce lawyer and mediator. I work with people who are fighting, and they're going through horrible stuff. They're angry, they're bitter, they're afraid, they're mistrustful, and they're fighting. They're fighting over money, fighting over property, fighting over their kids. Hard times. But what I notice in almost every case, there's still a thread of love. It's underneath it all. I see it in their tears. I see it in the concessions that they make that they don't have to under the law. I see it in the concern they express for the other person when they're talking to me privately. It's still there. In California, they don't call it divorce anymore. They call it dissolution of marriage. What is a dissolution? It's that and more. It's a dissolution of the hopes and the dreams of some starry-eyed couple who vowed till death do us part. But, with a 50% divorce rate, you kind of wonder about those vows. So things have evolved. Now there's something called conscious uncoupling. It's been in the news lately. Conscious uncoupling is it's based on the premise that no matter what happens, no matter the twists and turns of a relationship, you can still do the right thing with the other person. Be fair, be easy, act lovingly no matter what. I believe even in this day of serial monogamy and moving on to the next best thing, that's a promise people can keep. It's a promise worth keeping. And I'm really grateful to my parents for having that belief and for more. Because, life is short. We're on this uncertain path, not knowing where it leads, not knowing where it will end, or who will be with us along the way. So if we can hang on to the love that we've shared, then we'll never be alone. And like my mom on the side of the road, always have someone to lean on when life goes whizzing by.